But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all?
Hello, Jim Dramatic here. Welcome to another episode of episode reviews. It's been a while, months even, and I've done some Battlebots things and extra videos on the side, but this is the return to Series 6, and we're on Heat D, which of course contains some decent battles, some controversy in terms of some judges' decisions, but we'll get to that when we get to that, shall we? Joining me today, making her first appearance on my show, if we exclude, of course, the Big Bot quiz, but this is her first appearance on a podcast, it is EmpressReira.
Hello, it's me. I'm on loan from the ESC podcast and many other things that I do.
It's really great to have you on. I mean, it's been too long, I think, since I've taken it to get you on here, but I'm glad you're on here now.
Yeah, definitely. As a fan of the show, I'm looking forward to being part of it. It's great.
And thankfully you got a good heat to start off with, in my opinion. I think it's a pretty good one. I know
definitely one I can talk about. Definitely one I can talk about.
I know you've got some opinions, but I can't wait to hear those. And also joining me, I appeared on his podcast, which should be coming out not too soon, actually, after this, I don't imagine, but depends on the editing, of course. It is FreyFox. It is Mark. Hello there.
Yes, Mark Smith from Team FreyRobotics. I'm glad to be back. I do plan to get a new podcast episode out later this month sometime, but I can't commit to a certain date. It's not like I need to rush anyway. And I've also brought one of my cats with. His name is Fred, and he's sleeping on the same sofa that I'm sitting on just now.
Bonus guests.
I mean, I'd love to know what his opinion on this heat was. I'm sure he must have enjoyed it.
Well, you must have heard him just a moment ago. He was like, please, don't wake me up.
Bless him. But like I did say, yes, this is actually a decent heat to come back on, Heat D, because we have some interesting robots, and really only a couple of robots that aren't that great. I tell you, I enjoyed seeing a lot of the robots appearing here, and some underrated ones. But as per tradition, we do start with a heat winner, which made its shocking debut in Series 5, taking out robots like Plunderbird and Stinger. Not a big surprise of Plunderbird, I guess, but Stinger at least. It's S3, the second sequel to Sting. Didn't really have many problems in this heat, to be quite honest with you. It was pretty straightforward in how it interacted with all the robots, just spin and kill things, I suppose.
They smoothly went through this. They eased their way through this heat, didn't they?
Yeah, it was.
I don't think their performance this time was as dominating as it was in their Series 5 heat. But given the opposition they were against, and the fact they were playing a bit more conservatively this time, I still think it was a very solid performance.
I mean,
it was just incredibly smooth. That's what I like about it. They just genuinely just went for things. They didn't play around. It was quite nice. Although they did eat half an arena, but we'll talk about that when we get to that fight, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, compared to Series 5, their opponents were, I guess, not as high caliber. And that's kind of an insult to robots. So there's a decent Chrome bot this season. Obviously, Shredder is not a bad robot, but the expectations of being a robot like a really upgraded Plunderbird for that season in particular, and then you have Stinger, who was a grand finalist in the previous series, and then getting knocked out in the Heat finals, which is quite rare for a lot of grand finalists. Obviously, the previous Heat we had Chaos 2 being knocked out, so I guess the expectations with this seed might have a bit of an issue, but given it's a relatively newer addition to Robot Wars, but it was pretty solid, honestly. Though I have to question something that Craig said at the beginning of the series, where he was saying that the field is as open as ever now that Chaos 2 has been knocked out. When this is one of the most boring series in terms of the robots that actually got through to the semi-finals. Like, excluding 13 Black, Terahertz, and the previously winning Dan Tomkia, it was quite predictable for the most part.
Very much so. Series 7 was a bit more interesting because so many of the hot favourites didn't come back after. Yeah, and the fact that S3 really didn't have many opponents that really challenged it in this particular. I mean, Chrome Bot was the closest, and that's only because they kept going near the pit all the time, as opposed to actually being an enemy.
No, yeah, you're right there. It's well, that was actually really fun. Do you know, I actually will take back that this was a nice and smooth one, because there was a lot of fun in the Chromalot fight with sort of dancing around the pit and trying to tease each other. That was quite funny.
I mean, from Series 5, the robot didn't change that much, really. I mean, and looks-wise, obviously, internally it might have changed, but looks-wise, pretty much identical to the last
It still
season.
has the same hammerhead sort of appearance. It looks exactly the same as it did in...
Certainly looks a lot different to Sting and Sting 2, though. They really changed it up when they made S3, didn't they?
It's certainly a glow-up, to say the least. I mean...
It's a sequel in a loose sense of the word, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's unlike Chaos and Chaos 2, where at least had the same name. If you didn't know it was the Sting team, it could have been just a cool sounding name, like M2 from Series 7. You know, obviously I know there's probably a robot beforehand, or TR2, but since we've never seen the previous version of it, you think, oh, maybe it's just a cool naming thing, or they had a previous robot and a lot, some side event or whatever. But no, they appeared twice already. Left Series 4, came back, and then just completely dominated everything in their heat. So it's still impressive, you know. I mean, it's a shame we never saw them in Series 7. They actually retired the robot after Series 6, but not particularly sure why. Maybe they just didn't fancy it anymore. Maybe they couldn't have the time to dedicate to it. It's understandable, but it. You know, at least they got to win. At least technically, S3 has a complete win rate in terms of heats, so pretty impressive, honestly. It's like Dan Tomke until the reboot appeared. But I do like S3. I mean, its design really appeals to me. It's also, I mean, really only raises one of those kind of robots that can really get hold of it, because it's just an awkward shape. That, like I said, that
It's
hammerhead.
a really awkward shape, yeah.
I mean, that's why I love it, though. It's just an awesome looking robot, and for Series 6, you know, its spinner was pretty good. I can imagine this robot being a bit, if it was upgraded slightly, a bit smaller and easier to, you know, less awkward looking, so it could drive better. I could see the thing being good in the modern series. It had the potential, but yeah.
The problem with S3 now would be that you've got the disc at the front is quite narrow, and everything else is quite wide on either side of it. So it's quite easy for somebody else just to get past the disc and hit the side.
Yes, we'll move on to the next robot, which is a robot that gets the award for won't die despite how much he gets getting hit. It's all the Wild Thing award, I call it. Hit loads of times by S3 and didn't hear any bell. Of course, it is Shredder, coming from their great appearance in Series 5, where they pushed the pit button and drove into the pit. And their previous appearance is Manic Mutant, where they went onto the top of Gravedigger and got themselves flipped over. But this is the only series they actually do anything in, because they don't make much of an appearance in Series 7. They just make a one-round appearance, unfortunately.
Oh, black.
Extreme 2 as well, didn't they?
Yeah, it wasn't a good Series 7, but at least Shredder, while it wasn't a very destructive robot and didn't really live up to its name, I mean, it's just a giant tape recorder from the looks of it.
An old-fashioned tape reel.
Yeah, as JP said, you can't record anything on it.
Well, especially not as within the first few seconds of fighting happening in this episode, S3 launches one of their discs.
That was like in 3 seconds as well. I was like, in first contact, straight away knocking a disc off.
There was a distant sound of yeet from the box.
I mean, JP even said that they beat such great robots such as Mousetrap, and I'm like, this robot hasn't won a fight yet, JP. What are you talking about?
He got himself confused.
Like,
JP and his often confused and silly commentating.
I mean, he also
Shredder
used the word destructibility later, so he's just adding ability onto every word now at some point.
No.
Shredder was probably the single robot that got the most beat up throughout this entire heat. But I can commend him for the fact that he just patched the robot up and got the discs working again.
Yeah, they had to patch this thing up twice, because they got beaten up by S3 on the first round, and then kind of got a pass against the alien for the most part, but then had to rebuild, get the spinners working again, and then it gets beaten up again.
I would say this is like an early example of an undercutter in some ways as well, because for the start of one of their battles, they actually put the robot upside down. The discs were on the ground. Yeah, it
was their alien fight. Yeah, the original undercutter, of course, is Shredder. Way before singers like PP3D and Valkyrie and whatever, it's obviously Shredder.
Obviously.
Yes. I mean, I'm just surprised how durable this robot was. I mean, looks-wise, it didn't. It looked like it could just get hit so many times, and it did happen. But again, it kind of, I think, lost a bit unfairly in its heat final, where it was technically still alive, but RefBot just looked at it and went, "Well, it's not moving. I'm not going to nudge it, even though it's probably just stuck."
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Also, one of the bizarre things about this is the fact that the discs are rotating in towards each other.
It's a bit of a
That's
strange...
a really bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, this is also... I mean, Robo Wars can have a lot of issues. I mean, the last heat, bloody Dr. Fist's spinner goes down. So, we've had 2 heats in a row where spinners shouldn't be spinning the right way. Although with Dr. Fist, that was actually intentional. I mean, I don't know if Shredder could spin them the other way around or not, but... I
think Alien could spin either way as well, couldn't it? Because they were officially, quote-unquote, rotating hammers.
Yeah, I kind of like that, though, how they could, like... Although, obviously, most time they would obviously spin it the way to actually whack robots away from it.
The good way.
The good way, yes. But, you know, again, was Shredder really like an amazingly competitive robot? I mean, by Series 6, its discs were kind of... Because in Series 5, it was able to hit Mousetrap, and Mousetrap had wood on the side of it, and very thin armour, so it wasn't very durable, but... Well, I say that, and they actually did a good job against S3. Yeah, and also its disc got... I mean, obviously it lost one of its discs, but in its second fight, they just got bent and warped and unable to turn, and it looked so sad.
It didn't get quite as mullered as some of the other robots in this heat, but it did get a bit. It did get a bit. It did get a little bit decapitated.
Yeah, but it's a trooper though. Again, like I said, it sort of reminds me a bit of Wild Thing, how that robot would like go against Hypnodisc and Vader and 259, and it still worked. So you know,
it's impressive. I think is how I would say with Shredder. It impressed me. Like rewatching back, I didn't sort of expect it to do as well. I think my memories were clouded with the fact that it sort of got, you remember the big hits, so you remember it having its weapon torn to shreds, but you don't remember when they do actually half decent.
Yeah, it was an impressive, and I would definitely say an honourable attempt. Was it the greatest robot ever? No, obviously, but I have to admire some kind of durability a robot can have.
It's plucky, that's why I like it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. Plucky. That's probably the perfect way to describe it, really. And then we're going from one robot that I think was pretty impressive to the next one, who possibly the only time I've ever seen this thing actually compete properly, and that's Chromalot. It's been a joke since Series 3, really. I mean, it never really had... Series 3 just had a spike. Series 4 had that weird lighthouse attachment on. I don't know what that was. It didn't work, especially their self-writer. In Series 5, they had a good idea with the flipper, but going against Firestorm really was not going to win against Firestorm, and its only win was against Rohog, the robot that couldn't lift the weight limit. So, but this series, it actually got into the fight pretty well. It lifting ICU, flipping over GBH2. It had some good tactics against S3. It was the first time I've ever seen this team really have a good go in a fight, and I really enjoyed watching it throughout the heat.
There's
got a tire wrapped around it.
Yeah. One of the things that made me smile the most about rewatching this is the sort of, again, that sort of nostalgia factor of hearing people say things and how they say things and realising, oh, you don't know how right you are about the future. And the fact that after Chromalot does get eventually knocked out, he just resignedly says, oh, I might just build a spinner. And you're like, you're not wrong.
I mean, they built a spinner, and it got completely destroyed in the qualifiers.
They did.
It's very sad. It's the one time they changed the robot up significantly. Like, it's not just a weird circle, like in a rim of a wheel, and it gets completely destroyed. It's so typical when you change design. Yeah, I mean, It makes me miss Steve Merrill more and more watching these old series with him. I mean, this is where, he never peaked. Obviously, he peaked with the limo, in my opinion.
100%.
But he was so fun in this series. That rack of really awful jackets he had, like the leopard. There was like a leopard print one, I think. There was like a Dalmatian one.
Yeah, the like Dalmatian-y cow print one that Philippa actually pulls out for him. It's like, no, please don't wear that.
It's just, I mean, obviously some of them were obviously just meant to be just jokes. The fact he must have, but the fact he potentially bought those makes me laugh even more than the fact he brought them. Like, you imagine him in some charity shop, just like, that's the worst thing ever. That's something Del Boy wouldn't even wear, and I'll wear it.
Rocks into a fucking charity shop. I'll have the worst jackets you can sell me.
I mean, those guys are
tuxedo.
Imagine, I bet you the guys at Oxfam must have been looking like, you know, many pennies in their eyes when they see him walking up to the shop, knowing he's going to buy the worst things they have possible. Although
it's like he goes, it's like, we are class act. Bring us the tackiest that you've got.
Also, how can we forget that yet again it is another experience of word art being used on Robot Wars?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, this is the point where, we I think some people might have grown out of word art by now, but not these guys. Not the
word art
guys.
was very much a thing in the late 90s, going into around the year 2000. And by 2002, it had definitely gone out of vogue.
Also, Steve got a really, really funny comment. It was when they lost to S3. Like, Kratos, when are you going to build a better robot? And his response was, when are you going to get a better jacket? And this is coming from the guy who has a leopard print jacket, so I'm just saying, it's such a...
because I wasn't so keen on Craig's Series 6 jacket compared to his Series 3 jacket. It's not quite as embarrassing as his Robot Wars Extreme jacket.
Yeah.
Oh no.
If it had been brown rather than black, it would have looked like something tacky thing out of the Wild West.
It really did, the tassels. Oh, no, he didn't look good in the later series. I still preferred his Series 2 to 4 look, where the black leather. It looked much more in theme with Robot Wars and this weird tacky, yellow shirt.
It was finally the times, because by Series 5 came along, they'd gone from the dark and grungy aesthetic towards something more bright and colourful and more family friendly.
And also, this is the point where, either around Extreme or post-Extreme, Crazy Charles looked like he was phoning it in a little bit. Then moving on to a robot that hasn't changed all much since last series either, but at least got a little more reliable. I think it's one of the only series where it didn't break down at any point, which is nice to see. Of course, it's the Alien.
Self-writer worked.
Yes, it actually worked.
It's prehistoric monsoon.
Yeah, I mean,
with tiny Sarah Asplin.
It's so weird seeing, just going back to the older series. Oh, there she is.
Young, sweet, and innocent.
Yeah, all before then the monsoon attacked and took her.
then Toron and monsoon happened.
Yes. I mean, I do sort of disagree that they should have been eliminated in the second round. Personally, just from what we saw in the fight, Shredder did a decent job. I wouldn't say they dominated that fight much at all. I mean,
it would have been interesting to see the judges' scorecards back in those.
I disagree entirely with the Alien losing that fight. I don't understand how they lost it, and I mean it's funny because they also state that they don't understand how they lost it. So
it's a bit of a shame really because this was the first. I mean, Series 5, it was a decent robot, but clearly had a lot of issues with the power of its weapon. Like its weapon would take it out too much. But then in Series 6, they definitely managed to make it much more reliable as a robot, which I can appreciate because they have. I mean, looking at the idea, you can see sort of where some kind of future Toron and Monsoon appears just by the look of it.
I saw when I spoke to Sarah at a live event, she said that her dad still had the robot. You never know.
Oh, it's still there. Damn, that's awesome.
Well, that's what Sarah said.
A little bit of an old
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if, yeah.
I mean, the only thing that tips me off at being an old robot is all the polycarb on it. Because, my god, the old series loved polycarb.
I love polycarb, but that's because it's easy to work with. You can see.
Oh, it's easy to use with.
Around the year 2000, there was this fad where everything had to be transparent. You could see all the inner working. Buy PlayStation controllers and Game Boy Pockets that were transparent. Gizmo. And Game Boy Color cartridges were also transparent as well.
So what we're saying is that the Alien is just as good as a Game Boy. That's what we're saying there.
Well, it's following the same sort of trend where you have it transparent. If the alien came along maybe 10 years later, they might have made it out of something see-through.
I don't mind the see-through aesthetic.
In fact, I'll say this now. If Monsoon was built 20 years ago, they might have made it out of polycarb.
Oh, they would have. I mean, the peak of polycarb for me was always Series 4. So many robots just either used it or changed to it, and I was like the problem with it. I was just always I was associated in my mind with really older series for some reason. You do see it in modern robots as well.
It still gets used today, but it's mainly just as top armor.
Yeah, it's never used as the full armor of the robot, which was very common back in the earlier series. But I still like the alien though. Again, the fact they lost their battle is just weird to me. I don't know what. I mean, obviously the fights are edited down, so we have no idea if there's like a bit where Shredder was pushing them around a lot or anything. But
I like how in the post-fight interview they've given Sarah a box to stand on.
It's so cute, right?
It was very cute.
She seems to have grown up a lot since the previous series as well. She took the loss very well in that after that and everything. Yeah, I
say she took it quite well, considering the fact there was actually a battle where they could have won as well. It wasn't like last time where they just broke down.
Craig did say it could end in tears and everything, but no, there was no tears or anything. That was excellent.
She was very grown up.
She was. I think it shows how
compared to how some other children are at Robot Wars, or as my experience has been live events, but
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with live events and stuff. I've never ever fought anybody young, so it's a point where you're damned if you beat a kid, and you're damned if you're beaten by a kid.
It's true. I mean, at least a lot of kids can be quite mature about it. Thankfully. But we'll move on to the next robot then, actually, which is a robot I was very sad didn't make it past the first round, because what a difference between the first time they appeared and their current appearance. Of course, it's GBH2.
It's like an early ancestor of P1 from Battlebots.
It is. So hang on, we've got Monsoon, we've got P1, we've got the Shredder, which is basically Rotator, right? So
yes. Indeed, totally, yes. Oh, man.
S3 Witch's uppercut.
Yeah, S3's uppercut.
It's all connected.
This is just BattleBots.
Oh man, GBH2 was so unlucky. I mean, I do kind of see where they didn't get through, which was because of the actual in the one talked about main battle, but it was very unlucky. It was a very sort of similar to where Chomplot was in their fight, where they had so many stacked robots against them. This was less so, but the actual fight itself was really competitive. I think personally it just came down to the fact that GBH2 got attacked more than they attacked. I think that was probably what it came down to. Which
it's it was the first time we'd seen Team joint effort for 3 years. The last time this team appeared was the Facet, and even then the only returning member was the team captain Mike Smith, who brought his son along, and also Steve Dove, who was in the challenge, and he'd not appeared to be either.
Yeah, it was quite a blast from the past, because they just not appeared for 2 series in a row, and then bring back another different robot.
Yeah. What I do like is that this is the same team that brought one of my, we'll say favourite, but I don't think favourite's the right word. A robot that I kind of love for all the wrong reasons, because it's kind of shite, from Series 1 of Scrapper.
Oh,
they were the same team behind Scrapper.
Yeah.
I quite liked Scrapper.
It's adorable. It just did nothing.
Also, I think they're one of the few teams, excluding like Team Death and maybe like Adam Clark, who appeared in more than like 2 series, or at least 3 series, and brought a different robot every time. They brought Scrapper, GBH, Facet, and GBH2, and GBH was nothing like GBH2 at all. Apart from the fact they both flippers.
Was built from the chassis of Scrapper and other recycled parts. The saws in the back of GBH1 were from Scrapper. GBH2 is something completely different.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how I looked at Facet and thought that was pretty cool looking. I mean, the flipper was decently powerful, admittedly not the most powerful it could have been in Series 3, but
it always exposed its innards.
I love the fact that it has 2. It's got the decent front flipper, and then it's got this little like flappy thing at the back.
The little like nudger. It just kind of
It's
nudges robots
it's
over.
not. You can't call it a flipper. It's a
lifter.
it's an annoyance.
Yeah.
Also, I did like the fact that their main flipper could like really graciously self-right the robot over. It was like a very Cassius style self-right.
Nice boing. I like that.
It looked like it shouldn't be able to self-right given how massive it is, and it just like elegantly just flips back over and carries on going like nothing happened. One thing that does disappoint me about GBH2 though is it's two-wheel drive for some reason. I don't know why that's weird to me. It's this four-wheel drive outside, but it's only got two wheels on the bottom.
Does it have four wheels?
And it's only got two.
I don't know. Does it only have to... So hang on, they've drawn four wheels on something that doesn't even have four wheels. Hang on a minute.
The weirdest
I'm
thing,
pretty sure that breaks a law somewhere, doesn't it?
and the biggest crime is that the two wheels are on the front, not the back.
What's it?
Yeah,
What's
they're on the front. You see it when it gets flipped over. The two wheels were at the front of the robot, not at the back.
It's much harder to control a robot.
I'm so confused.
I think that's why it didn't have much good control in the fight, because it wasn't even if it wasn't four-wheel drive and if it was two-wheel drive, the wheels are sort of like awkwardly stuck at the front. So I think that was its biggest issue. It just didn't drive very well after batch.
Yeah,
I'm so confused. Why are
problem because it's only got two wheels. It drove very poorly.
Why are the wheels at the front?
I think I've just broken Rare in her first appearance on my podcast already.
Why is the wheels at the front?
I don't know.
Everything in me that builds robots is screaming right now.
I will say though, actually, the robot itself, and obviously P1 is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of obviously race car themed robots. There's another robot, particularly from the most modern season of Battlebots, that reminds me of it is Gamma 9. Very similar as well.
Oh, it's the dome on the top, right?
Yeah, and it's got the front flipper as well. Like it's not like a rear. Yeah. Obviously it's a rear hinge one, but it's very similar in shape wise. And I mean, Gamma 9 was one of my favourite designed robots.
I've always loved that. I've always loved that team's designs. They're always really cool.
I mean, it reminds me of the Batmobile. That's how I describe Gamma 9, and it has a very similar aesthetic. And the dome obviously helps a lot to come in the comparison. But and also Gamma 9 was pretty commendable in its on-screen fights and BattleBots. But it has that, and GBH again, it was very good. I think again it just came down to the fact it was attacked a lot without actually attacking back very often, and also many times it wasn't in the action a lot. It just drove around the arena. It wasn't as aggressive, which is why I can see why they lost.
It had such a damn decent sort of speed to it as well. They weren't kidding when they mentioned, it's got good speed. There's so often when they do the intros and they go, what's the thing you're good at? People go, I'm really good at insert thing here. And then in the fight, it'll be, no, you're not. You've said that because it's a thing that you do marginally well compared to everything else your robot does, not because you're good at it. But these guys said the thing and backed it up. It was great.
They also made an appearance in BattleBots as well. I think it was called the Mucilane Monster or something very similar. It's a racing reference I don't know particularly well, but I'm sure that's a reference to something that makes sense. But...
I didn't realise it had gone to BattleBots for it. I knew it was called the Mucilane Monster.
Not BattleBots, sorry. Techno Games, I meant to say, sorry. I meant to say Techno.
Oh.
Yeah, so that'd be more impressive when it went to BattleBots, but no, it was Techno Games, so I think it was in the obstacle course, and I think it only made one appearance, because I think it lost in its first go.
Techno Games.
Unfortunately, I have no good word for the next robot, which was Armadrillo.
Oh no, can we not?
The robot that was so
Any
low.
robot that's made out of mostly patterned aluminium is going to get shredded.
It's a shame this thing's from Kent. It makes me sad.
Also, it was so low that even the team admitted it could barely get any traction on the arena, which is probably why it spent most of the fight not fighting. It just sort of you saw it occasionally on camera sticking its I'm going to come and fight up. No, I'm going to drive away. Never mind. And the S3 back to shredder for the whole fight.
Trying to count it out. The count ended up stopping.
I think one of like 2 or 3 robots that defied the count and just carried on going. The other being, I know, famously Alienator and I think the Featherweight, which was one of the Alien Team's robots actually. Were just stood next to the wall, and then Refbot comes to count out, and like 8 or 9 seconds, it just moves. And it's like, we are fine. But Armadillo's one of those robots. There's probably the only robot in this heat I have like almost nothing to talk about. It's the team weren't even confident in the robot, so I don't know how I can be even confident talking about it at all, because it didn't do anything. It got hit by Mr. Psycho once, barely.
So hang on a minute. Are you saying this is the Tuxedo Mask of Robot Wars? My job here is done, but you didn't do anything.
My job is still done. Yeah, it's just so like, at least something like Dr. Fist or Short Circuit or something like that. I have something I can make a jab at how bad it was. It wasn't even like entertainingly bad. It just existed, and as soon as Rhubarb went out, there was no other robot that was going to go through. Unless Shredder just suddenly died out of nowhere and pulled a Shreddable, then it wasn't going to do anything. And it just, I don't know. It's so lackluster as a robot. Shape-wise, it kind of reminds you of Anvil. That, I think it was the RAF entry for the Forces Special. It was either that or the Navy. I can't remember. No, nowhere near as well. But I mean, Anvil was actually pretty tanky and way lower to the ground than Armadillo. But it's actually, I think we can talk about this. I feel weird. I've got nothing to say about this. I mean, I'm stuck.
It's from near me, and it's as bad as anything I've built. And I think I'm done. That's all my comments.
This might be the shortest I've ever talked about a robot, because I have nothing. I mean, it's not even funny.
What were its weapons?
It had two like milling cutter things on the front, and I think it was a statics drill or a very thin moving drill on the back of it, a bit similar to what Decapitator had in Series 5, that little like thin drill. I think that's all it had. It had nothing else on it. It was similar, also a bit like what Drillzilla had in the back of their robot, which they didn't really use at any point. But yeah, Armadillo was a robot, and I have absolutely nothing else to say about it. Let's move on to a better robot, shall we? Can we please move on to ICU, which was
Sorry, did you say a better robot?
I remember more about ICU, at least. I remember this thing exists, and also, it's dumb. It's just the Exterminator from Series 3.
I was about to say, is it me or is this just Exterminator?
No, it literally is Exterminator from Series 3, because it's also the rest of the Pritchard family. They're just coming and giving this robot to, just drive it, see what happens.
I didn't know it was actually Exterminator.
Here's an interesting piece of trivia. They were originally going to call it Robo Fox and have it like a fox. And then they changed their mind instead.
And just stuck loads of ping pong balls all over it.
Why am I completely unsurprised that you know that fact, Mark, and B, really disappointed they didn't do that?
I don't know. I'm full of use.
Full of useful information.
It would have been the first Fox-themed robot in Robot Wars, because Foxic didn't exist yet. So, which is a bit of a shame. But I don't know.
We had to wait another, 14 years for a Fox-themed robot to appear in Robot Wars.
And it was unfortunately lackluster. Despite how much I love Craig Danby, it was such a shame how he did. But that's off topic. But ICU, you gotta admit though, for a robot that was from Series 3, it didn't do that badly. Like, it didn't get completely wrecked. I mean, obviously its armor got peeled up quite a bit by the alien, but it technically survived. It just got flipped over to the point where it couldn't self-right. But it was more of a hindrance by the fact it kept throwing half the robot, all this extras it had on top of it, just throwing them all over the arena. It's making trip hazards, as I like to call it.
All the googly eyes.
Yeah, which half of them are ping pong balls and stuff. I don't know what they were, but they probably were. That's what they were, really. But it's such a downgrade, because it's weird to show you how old Exterminator was by Series 6. Because in Series 3, Exterminator was really good for a Series 3 robot, and then it just put it in the Series 6 arena, and then instantly it's getting beaten by Sir Chromalot and the Alien. Sir Chromalot took this thing out.
As I said, it was armoured and patterned aluminium like Armadillo was, and like I said, that's just begging to be shredded, and it was shredded on the very first hit.
Also, I have to say, this might be either really impressive or really sad, depending on how you look at it. ICU is the only robot Sir Chromalot has actually KO'd itself. Because Rohog ran into the wall and killed itself. It didn't actually kill Shell Shock. It didn't. I think Reactor and Steel Avenger, it didn't actually beat them. And
Thunderbird drove itself down
Yeah, Paloma drove itself in the pit, and in Series... Yeah, it's the only robot I think is actually KO'd. That hasn't been, like, by proxy or just broken down or something. It actually has KO'd it properly.
It genuinely actually killed it, yeah.
Because I was rewatching the Heat before we did the podcast, and I remember going back and went, wait, who actually killed ICU? I thought it was Alien that flipped it over, or GBH2, but it was Sir
Let's
Chromalot.
find out.
I was like, it flipped it over, and I was like, what? Sir Chromalot killed it? That's probably where they got through, honestly, because they actually killed a robot, while GBH2 just drove around, self-righted, and occasionally got hit.
I think that was probably what's the judges there.
Yeah, because while Sir Chromalot was, like, almost out by the end of the fight, it was still in the action more than GBH2, and again, ICU got beaten up massively, so it was a rip on their part.
ICU got massacred. Let's not beat around the bush.
It also appeared back in the New Blood, actually, along with Rhubarb, actually. And they did okay. I think they got past the first round, which wasn't saying much because the New Blood wasn't very good for the most part. But I don't know. I do find it fun. At least I don't know. It's just dumb looking. I can't hate a robot that's silly. At least, like, I don't know. It's not trying to be taken too seriously because they need to probably want to get past the first round. Like, they are bringing a Series 3 robot into the arena, and compared to other robots like Napalm that brought their old robot in, or Detonator even. I'm bringing back flashbacks of Rare now.
Can I just have one podcast where someone doesn't bring them up?
Oh, I'm so sorry, but it was relevant to the topic, unfortunately.
It was, but I'm still gonna cry.
I would say out of all the robots that were just brought back with barely any changes, I would say it probably did the best, which is sad, because they actually worked properly throughout the fight. They just got flipped over. They were still working by then, but then pitted.
I just read up on the wiki that it was going to be RoboFox for Series 5 that failed to qualify.
That makes sense. They probably entered 2 robots to be safe,
it
I
won
guess.
2 fights. It defeated a robot called Hornet, it immobilized another one called Chip, but they still did not select it to compete.
Chip is an unfortunate one. They spent so long trying to get into the series, they do well in the New Blood, and then they get flipped out in the first round by Spawn again. So it was unfortunate, to say the least. But I don't know. ICU is not a great robot by any means. Incredibly outdated, but the team didn't care, you know.
It was a bit of fun. Yeah,
exactly. It was a fun robot. It's not like Armadillo was just kind of boring. You know, there's no personality to Armadillo. At least ICU had something. And we saw it in the New Blood later on, so we'll get to talk about it a bit more later on. And then the final robot, which is the shiniest robot that has appeared since Cerberus, is Rhubarb. And
wrapping paper.
This thing did nothing. It did absolutely nothing. We saw it move for a good about maybe 10 seconds, and it just randomly went to one of the arena, like the PPZs, and its link fell out. So, yeah, we got to Heat Final of New Blood, but who cares about the New Blood, because that's not the real competition. That means nothing, apart from a potential seed in Series 7. I've put on my notes, actually, all I've got about this robot is Link, shiny, and wallpaper better than robot. That's all I've written about Rhubarb.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looked pretty nice, but
the paints worked. It didn't actually get wrecked as much as it could have. I mean, you know, obviously it wasn't. I mean, S3 never got a go at it at any point, so it never actually got damaged.
It reminds me of wallpaper that looked popular in the 1960s and the early 70s.
I just think of like a cheap Christmas present wrapping. That's what I look at when I see it. But Rhubarb, it didn't really prove itself very well. Did better in Series 7 by 1 round, but it was just a flipper with wallpaper on it.
It was certainly there. It was a present robot.
It was kind of like a very budget bigger brother with wallpaper all over it. Like the way the mechanism looked, it just reminds me.
I'd say.
Oh yeah, a lot more competent. Although admittedly not a bad robot. Again, it's just these things happen. But
first-time competitors, you know, so...
The thing is, right, if they kept going and got out of trouble, they probably could have outlasted Shredder in the judge's decision. Because Shredder was really not doing anything in its fight. It was just getting beaten up by S3 half the time. And S3 spent most of its time stuck in the CPZ getting hit by Mr. Psycho. That was half the fight, was them unable to get past Mr. Psycho. Which was quite funny. But of course, the big fight was the first fight with Sir Chromalot, the Alien, ICU, and GBH2, which was in contention for one of the best opening 4-way melees of Series 6. I would
It
say.
was a really enjoyable melee. Yeah, it was actually
Good
really fun
aggression
to
from all
watch.
4 robots.
Every robot fought, even ICU, which didn't do much in the fight, at least worked throughout the fight until they got flipped over. The Alien was really aggressive, did some good damage to both Sir Chromelot, GBH2, and ICU. Sir Chromelot took out a robot and survived to the end of the fight barely. GBH2 did some decent amounts of flips along the way. Some people consider this decision a bit controversial. I'm in the camp where I can agree. I can agree with the decision, but I could see GBH2 also winning over Sir Chromelot. Because the Alien was getting through. That wasn't there was no doubt with that one. That did way more than enough to get through.
Alien was seriously impressive. Like, seriously impressive in his first fight.
Like I mentioned before, though, I do think it came down to the fact that... I don't know what you guys think either, but I think it was down to the fact that GBH2 simply just got attacked more, and also took some damage from the Alien. Unlike Sir Chromelot, which didn't take that much damage, just took a few bumps to the side of it. And also, it didn't do much aggression throughout the whole fight. It just it hit Sir Chromelot only when it was near it, if you get me. I don't know what you think, though, about the decision.
Yeah, I'm relatively meh about it. I feel like it was just not quite the correct decision to be made there.
Oh, how come?
I'm not quite as upset with this as I am with the Shredder versus Alien fight. I'll put it that way. But I do still think that Chromelot maybe.
I mean, there
was out.
There was a point in the fight where if Chromelot hadn't been nudged by the Alien, they would have probably been counted out.
Yeah,
they were just stuck on their back, and despite how powerful their flipper could be, it had a problem getting stuck open quite a lot when it was upside down, and had to be nudged to get it back down again to self-right. It was unpredictable with how it flipped. And these could have been flipped. And near the end of the fight, Sir Chromelot was almost out. If it wasn't for the last 10 seconds. GBH2 didn't really take any of the robots out, technically. Obviously, it went down to the last minute. But I think, Sir Chromelot beating ICU was probably the biggest tipping point. And also, Chromelot took the least amount of damage out of the two robots as well. Because if you look at GBH2 post-fight, it's got a lot of gashes on the side of it where the Alien hit it.
Yeah.
And it got one of its back flipper in particular, this little nudger lifter thing, got pretty fucked up at one point when it got hit against the Alien as well. Got bent up a little bit. Not to the point where it couldn't be used, but it was significantly damaged, so... It's understandable. But like I said, not as understandable as Shredder and the Alien, though.
Yeah, that one is just baffling.
I mean, I don't know what they edited out to make Shredder look good, but they didn't put it in. Wherever it did, because it just... And there were... I would say the first half was all the Alien. Definitely. The second half was a bit close, although I would say the Alien got hit a few times by Shunt. Not damaged at all, but just hit.
Yeah.
But I'd say the Alien was more aggressive, because Shredder was kind of just driving around, not being able to do much to them. They got a few nudges near the end of the fight in the last minute. Not much else. The biggest problem with the Alien, though, is their weapon didn't seem to be working. After the first hit, it just sort of stopped.
That's the question. If the Alien did manage to get through, do you think they could have beaten S3? I think it depends on whether their weapon...
The thing is, I think with the Alien, I just don't see its armour standing up to S3. Given the fact that Shredder was having problems with S3, and their armour was metal, and this is more of a polycarb armour. Plus, the Alien's not been known for being too reliable in its previous series. And obviously, it's more reliable this season, but we don't know how good it would have been against a powerful spinner. So I don't know. I could see it going. I could see probably more of an S3 win, but it could have been a good fight, I reckon. But it wasn't a good decision, though. Let's be honest. I don't know. I don't understand how the Alien lost that one.
I just don't get it at all. It's actually kind of frustrating as well, actually, because even the teams are completely confused by it. And if you've ever been at an event where a controversial decision has happened, if the teams are confused about it, you take it back to the judges and go, Yeah, even they don't think that's right. They're being told they've won, and that's not right.
Yeah.
If it doesn't feel like it was the right decision, it's probably wrong.
Yeah.
Usually the case. I mean, some people have argued that I've heard people argue potentially it could be because like maybe the alien was driving into a lot into CPZs and got attacked or stuff like that. But even then, that was very, very few amount of times.
You have to give points to Shredder on control, but that's it. That's all you can give it points on.
Yeah, because the aggression definitely goes to the alien, particularly because when it was going to CPZ, it was because it was pushing Shredder into the CPZ and shouldn't just want to have him to attack it every time. Moving on to a less controversial fight, though, Sir Chromalot and S3. To their credit, good strategy, I thought.
Yeah, very good strategy.
I mean, given how awkward S3 is at both control and its size.
They did the old pit wiggle.
And unfortunately, it just didn't work out for them, because eventually Sir Chromalot got bored and went, right, we're going to have to actually do something in this fight in order to get some points.
The old pit wiggle sounds like some sort of dance phrase from the 50s. Or
do the pit wiggle.
Do the pit wiggle.
Do the pit wiggle. I'm liking this now. This is a whole new dance craze we can introduce. You know, who cares about the Shreemek song or whatever it was in Extreme?
Screw that. We got pit wiggle.
Oh god, yeah, definitely. But eventually, yeah, so Chromalot just kind of went, right, we have to do something here, and they the good old charge into S3, and it went as well as you expected. By that, it didn't go well at all, because they got completely flipped over multiple times by the spinner, and at one point got stuck on their side, so the Self-Rider couldn't even do anything. Again,
it got massacred too. Some of those hits were really solid.
Although, again, like I said before, this was definitely Sir Chromalot's best season or series ever. I mean, every other series they've been in, the team have been great, but the robot has never done anything, ever. And this is the first time they actually KO'd a robot. They actually had some good strategy against a robot that could have easily beaten them, which it did eventually do. But they showed they actually had some degree of thought. And it's so annoying this is the last time we've seen them in the main series. A massive shame, honestly. We never get to see this guy again. I mean, Steve Merrill was, and always will be, one of the greatest personalities to ever appear on Robot Wars.
100%.
I mean,
100%.
He's the golden trio with the Deer Tour boys and the Plunderbird boys of just these, eccentric people. Obviously there's way more examples than them, but they're the most three prominent ones that come to mind off the bat. They're the trio.
They definitely paved the way for more exciting things.
But of course, all this has been a prelude to possibly one of the Heat finalists that got the most battered in Series 6.
Yup.
Shredder kept going, even when it should have still been going. It got counted out, which was again a little bit bullshit. But
I have a wonderful analogy for this fight. My first ever Beetleweight fight was just on my own against Daedalus.
Oh yeah.
And I never tapped out. I kept driving until I couldn't drive anymore. I was knocked around that arena like a hockey puck. I was abused in that fight, but I just kept going. And I think that same spirit is definitely alive in this final here, because it's genuinely we know we're probably losing. We're just going to keep driving and stay alive as long as we can.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember who said it.
The clock down, yeah.
I know multiple Roboteers or Crazy Child have said this in the past, but the worst thing you can do is go out with an intact robot. Sometimes,
yeah,
it shows that you tried, or at least got beaten trying. At least,
yeah. And there's a degree where you probably want stuff to stop. I mean, I've always got a lot of respect for people, asking for a fight to stop when there's nothing left of your robot. There's multiple examples of that in the modern series. Is Tweedy and Vanquish come to mind with their fight with Ice Wave, having to ask them to stop. But there's a difference between that and taking one little love tap and going, nope, I've lost, I'm out. Tap out, I can feed.
The example I thought, when you were mentioning Battlebots, I thought Shark to Trekian.
Oh, bless. Oh, Shark to Trekian, how I love thee.
Oh, man, it was never... Shredder didn't get nearly as fucked up as that, thankfully.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of example at the last big Beetleweight event as well, because I won't name names, but one of the first rounds, like one hit, then tapped out, even though it was still working. Whereas I kept on driving my robot around, well, eventually the self-rider was, and I was upside down.
See, I respect that a lot more than a tap out after one hit. It's almost like you can't, like you've not realised what you got yourself into against spinners for some reason. You know, you kind of expect it by now, especially in the lower weight classes.
These things.
Yeah, very much in the lower weight classes.
Because those things are worse than the heavyweights for destruction sometimes. I mean, Jesus, especially when you get to beetle and ant weights. Oh, man, they don't hold back at all.
No, they seriously
And they're also a lot cheaper to repair as well.
Yeah, I think that does mean that people go in a bit sort of more head first with beetles and ants, because, you know, a full replacement chassis at like ant is only going to cost you what, like 30-40 quid, depending on what material you've used.
Yeah, and if you're not
less than that, maybe.
Yeah, and if you're not one of those teams in Battlebots that brings like 50 chassis to an event, then you're kind of screwed over half the time. So it's like, you know.
Oh, cries in the fact that Nellie's bringing two chassis. Cries in the fact that Nellie's bringing two chassis this year.
Pray for Nelly.
We only had one last time, I think, if I remember rightly.
I mean, it showed.
Quiet you.
I mean, there was the two words, deep and six. That's all I'm saying.
I will aggressively cry in your direction. You don't want this on your podcast. You already brought up detonator. You're on thin ice, young man.
Thank goodness it's the end of the podcast, then, at least. I mean, obviously, apart from the... I don't bother doing scores anymore, because scores mean bugger all, because a 6 is no much different to a 5 to me, or a 7, but, you know.
No.
It
was an enjoyable episode, with a lot of really
above
good
average.
fights.
I would describe this one as above average.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, only 2 robots weren't that great. I mean, obviously, like, in terms of entertainment value, because ICU at least looked funny. I mean, Rhubarb looked okay, but didn't really do much, and then, of course, Armadillo was a thing.
But sometimes a good episode needs... you know, exploding dead robots, you know.
Yeah, for every Hypnodisc, you need a Robogeddon. You know what I mean? You just need something.
Or a Splinter.
Yeah, or a Splinter. Or a Stealth. Or many other robots that get destroyed. Or a Bulldog Breed. Or an Atomic. Loads of robots.
Oh, no, I don't want to remember what happened to Stealth against Hypnotits.
Well, in that case, we'll move, obviously, just to briefly go over the robots that appeared in the next heat, which, of course... shows the return of Wild Thing, looking nothing like Wild Thing.
Yeah.
They went for the vert set rather than the horizontal spinner on the wedge lifter set they used to have. Not particularly sure why. I mean, you know, going for something different, I get it. But this one, it wasn't as bad as 3 Stacks to Heaven, you know, by no means. But it didn't feel in the spirit of the original robots they had. Like, all the robots prior were big wedges with really aggressive lifters and spinners, and it got better and better every series. And then
there's nothing better than these. Is it season 5? Yeah, season 5 Wild Thing. It's just iconic to me.
Yeah, it got better and better. You know, they had a really aggressive wedge in Series 3 with no self-righter. Series 4 they bring in the wedge spike lifter, and then in Series 5, Series 4 and Series 5 they brought the car hub spinner with the lifter on it. Very durable.
That is Wild Thing to me. Like season 5/Extreme Wild Thing. So Series 6 Wild Thing, although it still embodied the spirit of Wild Thing, it wasn't quite the same thing.
Yeah, and also
although officially, unofficially, it was called Wild Thing 2, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, I guess, because it's so different to the previous ones, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, at least it was durable still. You know, I mean, it was still a tank going against 2, for the time, pretty decent newcomers in terms of spinners. Yeah, it still won though. That's the thing. That surprises me more about this version of Wild Thing. It's the worst version by far, and it still managed to win the heat. So they did something right at least. The robot was still durable enough. Just not as good as it could have been. I mean, hell, you know, it's always going to be the most inferior version of the Wild Thing robots, but I can at least admire them for trying something different. You know?
Yeah.
Plus, also, we did actually lose Nick Adams, I believe, this year, which was very sad. Or that was
Very much
either it was this year or the end of last year. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was this year.
It was recently.
Yeah, very recently. It was definitely in the last 5 months or so, and it's such a shame. He was a very underrated competitor. Very well driven. Not very.
One of the best drivers in the whole.
Yeah, he rivals people like the Firestorm and Panic Attack in terms of really good driving. Again, his robots were always durable. Even the one, like we said, now wasn't the best one. It still worked.
Semi-pounds.
He lost to Razor, but then again, they were the defending champions, so you know. And also, it's Razor. Razor by Series 5 was pretty much unbeatable in terms of durability. So I'll give them some credit. Then, of course, we have Vader, which also they brought back in the next series, including also the IG-88, which is their different version of it. There's some
I much preferred IG-88 to Vader.
Yeah, I agree. I just love, again, it's like polycarb look. I'm not the biggest fan of it as much. I love the green on IG-88, and the spinner's a bit different. It's not just one big blade. It's like a little bar spinner.
It's a bar, yeah. It's almost a modern bar spinner.
Yeah, and alright, this is going to sound really dumb. This took me years to realize this was a Star Wars reference, even though it's called Vader.
Really?
I thought it was Invader, like short for Invader. And since I didn't know what IG-88 was, I wasn't that big of a. I didn't know much about Star Wars at the time. I had no idea what that word meant either. That phrase. I know what it means now, but then I realized, I looked at Vader, and went, oh, of course, Darth Vader. I was like, wait, what's IG-88? Looked and went, oh, it's another Star Wars reference. Oh, okay. Makes sense now. A
really damn neat Star Wars reference as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, they call me dumb. Again, I just thought it was short for Invader. I don't know why I thought that.
That's fair.
It's not the dumbest thing I thought. There's loads of things I didn't realise for years, but that was probably one of the more obvious ones I can think off the bat. Vader was pretty decent, though. I like the design of it. I constantly forget that the disc is the front of the robot. It just looks like it's going backwards the entire time. Like a Steg 2 situation, except it's meant to go that way. I do like it. The disc was cool.
You're not going to make that mistake on one of the other robots on here.
No, of course not. I
think it's pretty obvious to know which way 259 needs to point.
Yeah, Adam Clark's magnum opus in terms of robots. I mean, this is his first.
What if we played Hypnodisc, but up?
It's so Battlebots looking as well.
It's just like Deep Six. What if we made Tombstone but up?
Yeah. It looks like something from Battlebots, though. Like, it's sort of like Panic Attack, but they stuck this disc on top of it. And then suddenly made it better. And this was...
we have Nightmare at home.
Yeah, except this was actually decent, though, at least.
It was.
Although we have to give it a massive fat F when it lost to Fluffy. Possibly one of the saddest, but yet most...
Fluffy is possessed. It's fine to lose to a terrifying murder robot.
I think it's the fact though it got beat. His weapon got taken out pretty quickly. It's like fair enough, whatever. But then, in fact, it has that massive hit where it flies over, and you can just see all the belts and stuff flying, and when the skirts is lifted up and falling off, and it looks so sad. But again, going out with an intact robot is probably worse than going out like that.
You built a middleweight version of it as well.
Yes, the one that was lost to the 10 billion typhoons that existed in the world. I'm still going to call bullshit on Typhoon Twins being a cluster bot with paper around them. Just nope, that's not allowed. Shouldn't be able to do that. That doesn't count. But apparently it did at the time.
I just wish we'd gotten the time to see 259H. Because 259H, we discussed this a lot.
Actually, I discussed. I was on the episode on the ESC. I discussed that one. I believe. I think it was Oliver who picked it. I can't remember if it was Oliver or not. I know I picked Pendragon for mine. But yeah, it looks so cool. It reminds you a little bit of Bender from BattleBots. A little bit.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
In a good way, of course. I do like Bender's design-wise. Also, a little bit like Texas Twister as well. A little bit, just the way the disc goes down with the two wheels. We never saw it, unfortunately. I think he was anticipated building it for Series 8, and it never happened. Which is a bit of a shame. But at least we got 259 in this series, and in Extreme too. We got to see a bit more of it there. So it was a fun robot. Then we have Agrobot 3, which is the same as it was in Extreme. Because it failed to qualify for Series 5 for some reason. But they came back with this just triangular shaped robot.
It's definitely not the best looking.
I don't really understand it. Honestly, this particular version.
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to the whole little wheel lifters lift up the entire robot as one big lifting flipper. I don't know. That doesn't really look right to me. Paintwork's still on point though. The paint still has that really good Agrabot vibe to it. But I think that's all I can say about that. But it's okay,
It's okay. It's still Agrobot. It's just different.
Yeah, I mean, subject to drive error.
Subject to. I was about to say. I love the fact that its weakness is subject to driver error.
I mean, if you haven't,
they're honest.
Yeah, if you haven't watched Road Wars enough, while you're on Heat D watching this now, but second of all, you'd be surprised how often they say driver error on drivers is the biggest weakness of a robot. It's a lot of teams are very honest. I like here. Then we come up to
honest or self-depreciating, one of the two. But some of them are actually decent drivers that tell them, call themselves not great, but a
little bit of column A and a little bit of column B.
Yeah. We should also be prepared because we are going to have to cover Oliver's ears for one of these.
Of course, yes.
I've just scrolled up and seen.
I'll leave that one to last then. I think then. I'll move on to UFO then. Who this version of UFO I don't understand.
What is it? I don't get it. I just don't understand. I like the fact that they went, back to the drawing board, wedge flipper. Because what the fuck was this thing?
I mean,
owned by Shane Lyle.
Yeah, it is now owned by Shane.
Yeah, and this thing, surprisingly, it's funny, it went from Series 6, where it basically did nothing. It was like the armadillo of this heat, to taking on robots like Crustacean and Behemoth in Series 7 and actually doing a decent job. What was this glow up? I mean, presumably because they made a robot that was actually functional.
The glow up is fine. I understand the glow up. They went back to the drawing board and decided to design an actual robot rather than whatever this was.
So that's not how you make a robot. Oh, okay, hold on. Yeah, I mean, it's classed as a joke.
It's like they saw Stinger and went, that's what gives Stinger its decent ability. The long stick thing it has, it doesn't need to be a thwackbot though. That's fine.
I mean, it was described as a jaw, where the bottom jaw is so long that it's kind
just
of pointless.
never gonna work.
And it's really confusing because in Series 7 we have UFO and URO in the same series, which is totally not confusing whatsoever.
No, not at all.
But yeah, nothing. We've talked more about the Series 7 version than the Series 6 version, because the Series 6 version did nothing. Like I said,
nothing. Then again, it's sharing a heat with several other robots that are just bizarre. To be fair, though,
I mean, this
is a heat of weird-looking robots.
I mean, speaking of robots that did absolutely nothing, was Infinity, a robot that drove into the pit after getting its jaws. Yeah, the pincers are so flimsy. One hit from 259 and they're just up. Instantly. They've just curled up.
Yes. Pincers made of tinfoil. It would be fine.
It'd be perfectly
I'm
fine.
made of tinfoil too.
Oh, it's another robot that was on Techno Games, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point every robot's been on Techno Games, it feels like, from Robot Wars. Although, the funny thing is, they came runner-up in the University Challenge. How? I don't know. But they did.
Sure, they sure did.
They lost to Tiberius.
That is a thing. That is a thing they did.
And it's another robot lost to Tiberius 3 as well.
Yeah, but Tiberius 3 has its roots in things like, is the root of things like carbide and cobalt. So that's understandable.
This thing is can opener at home.
It is. It's not even that. That's being nice.
Yeah,
this
thing
I'm being
very
can
nice.
open at home. This is the Stag at home.
Speaking of the Stag, a robot I constantly forget even exists.
Oliver, cover your ears.
I'm very sorry, but yeah, I mean, the Stag's fine. that's all I have to. I don't care about it. It exists.
But its featherweight equivalent Staglet is more memorable.
Yeah, Staglet actually
agree.
got to the final. I think it was it was in the finals. They just managed to survive its first round.
I could not agree more with you. Like, honestly, it's the featherweight is fantastic. This is oh no, that means that this is also the heat with the terrifying crazy hat, isn't it?
Yes, it is. the weird, like,
just to make this heat
microchips.
even more weird.
Although I will say the Series 7 version of the Stag, while aesthetically not too much different, at least they put googly eyes on it, little eyes on it, which made it so much better than the Series 8, which is weird, like, bug alien look eyes, and it doesn't have as much personality on it. Though the team is called Team Bodget, which is a very appropriate name for this team.
Yeah.
Also,
rather wonderfully confusing. It was again on Techno Games, but as Beetlebot, which of course you wouldn't be able to call a heavyweight robot that in modern day because you'd really confuse people.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
This is my heavyweight Beetlebot, and this is my Beetleweight Heavybot.
It's called a Stag, which is a type of beetle, so it's even more confusing. Everything's just confusing about this robot. And then the last robot, which I'll obviously do more ranting and annoyance about for comic effect in the heat itself, but Infernal Contraption.
No.
I just know.
We have Axe Backward at home.
Oh god, that's an insult to Axe Backwards. I mean, that thing at least...
Battlebots referencing here.
Yeah, another one. It's just, I don't know, like, I think what makes me annoyed about this robot is the fact they chose a drum spinner. Whatever, it's a decently thick drum, I suppose, whatever. Except they put it on a flat bot.
It's more akin to what we would modern day call a disc, because it's not wide enough to be a drum, it's not thin enough to be a disc.
Yeah.
But, this thing just looks so silly, and the Series 8 version's the worst, because they gave either side a different colour, and it just... Oh, it looks like a Lego piece. It looks like I could just turn it on its side and connect it to a brick. And...
I think it's the fact that this thing made it into Series 8 is incredible.
It sure did.
It existed. I mean, that's as far as it went. It did what Infernal Contraption did best and did nothing, as it normally does. It was good fodder for 259 at least. That was the one thing it gives some positive about, because 259, while it might not do the most damage to a lot of robots, it makes them fly, which is always a positive because it's fun, fun spectacle. But yeah, that's coming in the next heat. Not as exciting as this one, admittedly, but we do have some at least really good robots to balance it out. Even if the best robots aren't necessarily the heat winner, but that's not always. It happens quite a lot in some series. Looking at Mousetrap and Evil Weevil, but. Yeah, this was a really good heat. Honestly, I'm glad when I was rewatching this, I was like, I forgot how good this one was. And Series 6 and 7 are two series I forget a lot about the details. So because it was when I stopped watching the series as regularly, so it's definitely nice to have a surprise like this of a good heat.
It's certainly a thing.
That is the best description I could give of this heat. It was a thing. Very much so.
It's be a wild thing.
Oh no, that's perfect. That's a transition for the end of this heat. Of course, as you've been hearing throughout this entire podcast, we've had two brilliant guests. Reira, where can we find you online?
You can find me mostly on Twitch. I'm doing a lot of Twitch stuff on twitch.tv/EmpressReira. You can find me on the ESC podcast. It's my regular home in the community. And I suppose on the Nelly the Yellybot page. I'm doing a few things of my own robot-wise at the moment, but they're all going to be all over the place. So if you follow me around on Facebook or Twitter, you'll find me eventually.
Sounds brilliant. And Mark, where can we find you online?
You can find me on the FreyFox channel or on the Team Frey Robotics Facebook page. I'm keeping myself busy. I'm working on the weight robot build. And,
it looks so good.
It does.
I'm so excited for it.
I think we all can't wait. Also, I believe you have a comic series, don't you? I believe.
I do. Transmission. Series.com. Story with me.
I've been following this series for quite a long time, and I've been really enjoying it. I've been quite enjoying the stuff at the moment. All links to everything will be in the description of the video, so go and check those out. They're very, very worth checking your time out. Like all my guests really are worth checking out here. So yes, I've been Jim Dramatic signing off, and I've also been joined by Reira.
Bye.
And also by Mark.
Thank you and good night.
See you later, folks. Bye.